Oh, look, it is time for Bring It In Troops, little Zoom from quarantine show. David Thorpe, how are you, sir?
I'm a little chilly. I know you want to hear that, but
Oh,
it was in the 50s today. So suck it, New Jersey.
yeah. Today's a big head fake here, to be honest. I thought I was gonna run earlier, and I put on like as if Nanook of the North kind of clothes to go running. And I was cold here in the office. And then there were some delays. This, that, blah, blah, blah. And oh, Judy's cursing at you in the chat, Dave.
Not the first time.
That is wow. I wonder if legal would approve that kind of language. But and then I had delay. And then I went running, I don't know, an hour before the show and just sweat through everything because somehow in this weird weather we have, it's like the Caribbean now. I don't know. It's probably warmer here than there. So
yeah, it's gonna be
like in Florida
here. It's gonna be 78 here, and it's gonna be 80 the rest of the week. It sucks. I'm glad to be chilly. My dog, I have to put a blanket around my dog though, because on days like this where he finally gets some cool weather, I've got everything opened up. I'm trying to get to like 45 in here, and he does not play that. I'm all wrapped up in my office.
We had purchased for our dog, like our dog is a little baby. We purchased a bed that she can get inside.
Oh, that's awesome! Like a kangaroo.
What's that?
Like a kangaroo?
It looks like a regular round dog bed, but on one side it has like the opening as if like a pita pocket. And the
like
first
kangaroo pouch.
Yeah, Judy says like a hamburger. The first, I don't know, 6 months we had her, we adopted her, and she was just huffy all night. She was like, ah.
That's awesome.
I'm like, what is wrong with this dog? Why is she so grunty? And finally I was like, I'll try a blanket on her. And then she was like finally quiet. And I'm like, well, this is a pain because the dog can't put a blanket on itself.
Right.
You know? Right. So then we had to get these. We have them everywhere now. We have upstairs, downstairs. Like it's just embarrassing. Yeah. She's like a naked little pig, our dog. She's like, she's no hair. She should live with you. We should trade dogs. We should probably trade dogs.
Yeah, I'm into that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure my wife would agree, but I'm fine with that.
All right. A thing happened. We're going to lead the show with something happened in 2017 that made TJ Ford cry. Go.
Oh, right. So tomorrow on Raising Winners, our Tuesday chat on Fireside, I've got my amazing friend, the godfather of my twins, Randall Leaf. Coach Randall Leaf is a legendary coach from Florida. He lives up in North Carolina now with his wife. And Randall is a brilliant coach and mentored at least two NFL players that I'm aware of, although they played basketball for him. And his three children, his last of which is finishing school now. We're all Division I athletes and all amazing students. And we're going to talk about how to use sports to just better inspire your kids to be better students. And I came across this on Twitter the other day. This is Rick Barnes, who's now a coach, I want to say maybe at Clemson. I'm not even sure. He's a college basketball coach somewhere else, but he was at Texas. He had a player named TJ Ford, who was a great player, took him to the Final Four. And in 2017, TJ graduated. And so this is Rick and TJ being interviewed after the graduation.
No. When he called me, about a month and a half ago, and he said, Coach, May 19th, I'm walking. And he said, you better be there. And I said, I wouldn't miss it for anything. And I love him. I love him, you know.
This is, he kisses and they start hugging, and TJ breaks down on his chest. I just love that so much. And Coach Barnes kissed him on his cheek.
Father figure for me while I was here. And in sports, it's hard to trust anybody, especially coming out of high school. And everything that he had a vision, I trust his vision, and I'm living it. Him and my mother and my father, they had a vision I didn't see, I didn't understand. I just trusted them, and I trust everything and every guidance that they have always given me, even to this day, and I depend on them a lot.
So, of course, it's emotional seeing TJ break down and crying in Coach Barnes' body, and all the more obvious things anyone can see. But honestly, and I'll talk about this tomorrow, Henry, I talk about this with my wife all the time. We're just our kids' parents. I've been Rick Barnes to lots of people, but to my kids, I'm just their parents, and I'm their dad, and you're their mom. We need help. And so you're always we always have been searching to find amazing people to inspire our children, to lead them, to guide them, to love them, because I think they're more effective in many cases than even we can be as parents. And if you're lucky, and it's not always the case, you find them. And TJ Ford got lucky in Coach Barnes as it worked for him. And so we're gonna talk again. This whole idea is exploring how can sports help us raise winners as in life for our kids. So seeing that just reminded me of why I'm doing this show.
I just want to underscore what David's saying. If you're a parent, what you want is for Randall Leaf to raise your kids. Is that what you're saying?
100% for sure. Oh, that's why. Yeah, I told our rabbi. He's like, "Well, Jews don't do godparents." I said, "Well, can you make an exception? These are amazing parents, and I want them officially in our family." And oh yeah, I wanted them to come down here so he could coach my son for sure.
Yeah.
And they're that's exactly right. You're exactly right. That's funny.
It's the point of the show. There's the clip notes on the show.
Oh yeah,
is get that couple to raise your kids because they'll do it better than you would.
Exactly.
All right. Have you heard of this player? He plays for the Dallas Mavericks. His name is Luka Doncic. You know what I'm talking about, David?
I never even say his name right. Yeah, Luka. So Luka hits a game winner. You can play it, Judy, just the video. Luka hits a game winner the other day, I think against Boston, right? Yeah, against the Celtics. Tie game, 11 seconds to go. They get the ball in bounds. And I didn't even know this, but you had commented to me that some people were criticizing the Celtics for the defense they played on Luka, who ends up taking this, 26-foot left side of the floor 3-point shot against not one, not two, but three Celtics players in his vicinity as he's falling down, and he makes the shot. And the truth is they could have doubled him early for sure, but the Celtics had 3-point shooters on the court. And if you double Luka early, someone's getting a wide open three. And instead they made Luka, albeit an amazing player, one of the best players in the world, have to make a circus shot.
So to any bucket, they lose to any bucket, right? So if you
they made exactly. Of course, you're right. If they double him, they could get a layup too. In fact, they probably would have got a layup.
Probably would, yeah.
And or at least had a foul. They forced the worst shot you could force in that situation, and he made it. And that's just, they say in golf, you tip your hat to a guy when he makes a big putt. Same thing in a sense. No one's wearing hats, but it's good defense. As I told you on the phone, if you're a casino, and you're never going to go broke as a casino when players have to keep hitting on 16 when you're showing a 10 card as the dealer. But you're going to lose some hands. And so they lost the hand on this. But if they keep doing that, the Celtics will be just fine late in games. That's for sure.
I still remember Steph Curry rearranged the whole NBA by taking one dribble over half court with the game on the line in Oklahoma City in 2016, I want to say, and just drilling a shot from a place people don't shoot. And immediately it's just knee jerk. It's so deeply ingrained in the commentators. And I think in this case, it was Jeff Gunny, basically oh, you got to get out on him. It's not in the first 100 years of this game. You don't, you know what I mean? Absolutely no. That's not, no defenders drilled in now we know, right? But the reason that made history, that shot, is because it's just incredibly difficult and rare and weird. And frankly, most of the commentary would probably be, what the hell is Steph doing? Right. Same with Luka. This shot Luka took 15 years ago, everybody would write, what the hell is he doing? But it went in.
Listen, I mean, even in the 90s, we had to guard shooters normally on the catch as opposed to the dribble. But I coached some teams against some teams that had brilliant shooters this is high school. They ended up playing college basketball because they were very, very good. And we would get mad at our guys for not guarding them at 25 feet, even in high school. But the reason why they didn't do it is because they never had to guard anyone before at 25 feet. And even though we had practiced and prepared to guard, in fact, the guy I'm talking about is a guy named Terry Williams, and I'm going to Georgia Southern, who played for the same school Randall Leaf once won a state championship for a couple years later. And the new head coach was a buddy of mine that I put with Randall. And we didn't guard Terry Williams. I think he scored 40 points against my team, shooting bombs. And I couldn't even get mad at my guys. We had never played someone that could make it from that deep on that team. Other teams I coached had guarded that. Yes, Steph has changed everything, but they played great defense on Luka. He was well guarded. One thing I'll say too, Henry, is my rule always was as a coach, in that situation, we're going to make you do something that you tend not to do. And if you beat us that way, you're just better. I don't think that works in the NBA. It worked in high school extremely well. I was very good. We won a lot of games that way. There's nothing you can make Luka do that he hasn't practiced. I mean, what hasn't he seen? You can bring doubles. You can bring him from different positions and areas on the court, different sizes. Yeah, maybe he'll turn over, but more than likely there was 11 seconds, not 4. he had time to fake and pivot and find some open for a wide open dunk or wide open shot.
If I said to you, this would be amusing. If I were like a evil billionaire and I'd say to you, David, like, I will give you all of my money if you will just get the ball out of Luka's hands. Just have it not be Luka. Like, what would you do? What would be your approach?
Yeah, I would put my either my fastest or my second fastest guy on him, even if he's small, and then bring my faster, second fastest, longer guy to go double and early, like on the catch. We're aggressively guarding under his chin. He's got to dribble the ball.
This is 80 feet from the hoop, though, in this play.
Yeah, he
right?
caught it about 75, 80 feet. We're guarding him under his chin, but that's why I want my speed guy on him. And then I'm handpicking the second guy, and I'm putting that guy on. Let's say, I don't know if he was on the court, maybe Porzingis, and hoping Porzingis will then have to dribble it and making him pass it. But again, it might have worked, but I still would argue the probability of scoring was lesser on the shot he got than anything you would do doubling against those players. I mean, it's not like Luka's small. He can throw it over most traps. And so I don't have a problem with the way Celtics guarded him. He just made a great shot.
Yeah. You guys had a good show on Friday, and I had so much work to do, but it was like everything, it took everything in me not to join you on Friday because like some issues came up in the NBA, David, that are right in the Henry Abbott wheelhouse. Like,
you think?
I was like,
talking about billionaires and general managers.
This is a home game for me. All right. So let me tell you what's been in my head all weekend. All right. So let's just understand that the nature of working for some small businesses, including the NBA, is that like the boss is in charge of everything, right? There's like a king, right? And if you work in some restaurants, maybe like if you work at a McDonald's, I guess that's probably some kind of metrics where like you're serving the food in a certain amount of time and the customers are happy and they fill out the little customer card and you're judged on how the customers perceive everything, right? Most NBA teams don't work like that at all. It's just like there's a literally an owner, right? Who comes around now and again, has a very warped perception of how things go, and you just can't piss that person off. That's just them's the rules. That's how it goes. And you see that kind of whatever you've learned about how journalism school works and speaking truth to power or whatever, you tend to see that like the people who go into that building every day, and this includes the beat writers and a lot of national journalists too, like adhere to these rules. Like it's bad for your career if you upset one of the very shortlisted people who determine how things happen in the NBA. This means like owners, GMs, coaches, superstars, they're in this kind of little circle that's like a permanent sort of set of like royalty in the NBA, right? And if you can't really go pissing them off and keep a career, because you can't make a journalism career out of things said in press conferences, right? You need people to pull you aside in the hallway, to call you at home at night, to take you to lunch, like so there's this creates this kind of ongoing compounding problem. It's true in Hollywood, it's true in politics, where everybody kind of knows this or that person is a jerk, but it's to no one's career benefit to say it, right? So we had a couple of breaches, right? We had a couple of interesting things happen, as I'm sure you're well aware. Last week, national writer Baxter Holmes told the world about Robert Sarver, and national writer Chris Haynes told the world about Neil Olshey. Two guys who are friends of the show, and I'm proud to say I think I'm right. Yeah, that I gave each of them their first national job. Doesn't matter, they were going to succeed with or without me, but they are both people in this little circle of people who are plugged in and willing to say unpopular things that upset power brokers. So I just think we need to pause for a second and say, nice job, Baxter Holmes. Nice job, Chris Haynes. Yay, truth. Also, let's wonder for a second about who else knew a lot of this about Sarver and Olshey and didn't report these stories. Picture whoever it is that is to you the most plugged in NBA journalists or a local writer. Local writers, they're people who have full-time jobs doing nothing but covering the small business known as the Portland Trailblazers and the small business known as the Phoenix Suns. And these things have been whispered about Sarver for almost 20 years and nothing. And Olshey has been there for a decade. Why don't most journalists do this? It's complicated. We could talk about it for hours. I don't want to do that because that'd be pretty boring. But I think it's mostly about wanting to help your career. And I think what you'll see now, it's already happening. A lot of writers are saying everybody always knew this about Neil Olshey, and everybody always knew this about Robert Sarver. They also said that about Donald Sterling. Before Donald Sterling ever got in trouble for anything, very plugged in people in the NBA told me they thought he should be kicked out of the league for being a terrible guy. He wasn't recorded doing anything, which tells me he wasn't kicked out of the league so much for being on a recording. He's been kicked out of the league because, everybody kind of knew this stuff for a long time. So that leaves us wondering what else is out there. Like, these are two unusual cases, right? What else is out there? What is the thing that everybody knows that nobody's saying, right? It's a big question. That was the question that TrueHoop launched with in 2005. You can go read the first post. That's what we do here, right? I'm not going to tell you it's been great for my career, right? But it's important, right? Because I think it's important for the NBA, for the long-term health of the NBA, that we sort of embrace it warts and all, not some sort of faux version. But I also think it's why, like, when you see Jeffrey Epstein in close proximity to NBA money, like, I don't think it's really okay for us to just like be like, yeah, no, that happened. Owners are weird. Ha. Like, I think it's actually super problematic. So that's kind of our mission here, is like, this is what we're doing. Like, would love to talk about TJ Ford crying and nothing else but that. But there is like this other worrisome thing, which is, that story about the Mavericks and their corporate culture. Like, these things are on our watch. This is on our beat. And we're by and large as a group doing a very poor job of telling hard truths. And, I hope we can turn over a new leaf in that regard.
Well, so yeah, obviously I'm with you on this. And to be clear, you've written and talked a lot about sport washing, which is not a term that I had ever thought of before or heard of until you talked about it. And this is one reason why, they do it, is they just want to be seen as heroes. You were telling me a story today about an owner, kind of getting a puff piece being done about him because you can when you're the owner of a team. And you want to talk about that, you can. But so
there's there are a lot of ways this happens. One of them, one thing I've noticed, like, for sure happening lately is young writers, right? So if you were like a first year writer covering the Phoenix Suns, you just wouldn't know that unless you listen to Amin Al-Hassan. But you would probably, someone say, hey, we can get you a little time with Robert Sarver if you want, right? This is a hypothetical. I don't know that this happened, but like, they tend not to do that with like the 15-year with Baxter Holmes, right? They wouldn't do it with Baxter Holmes. Baxter is super dedicated. He's like a machine of journalism, which is different from entertainment and sports media, right? And I think that, I know for sure of a case where a group bought a team, owner's kind of creepy, and the people who are smart about all this, like, hand selected a very young writer, like, hey, we could get you some time with this billionaire. And then the piece comes out. I've read it several times. It's like, oh, it's like this very gauzy, like, billionaire had some minimal athletic experience in high school and college, and we'll draw from that to make great decisions moving forward. It's basically the point of the piece. It's like, whatever. Like, that's not what happens, right? like that's how, if you're a very creepy person, you get people to think you're a good guy, right? And fans are a little bit part of this story, right? Like I'm a fan too, but we're kind of babies, right? Like on the day that someone puts up 40 points, if someone's like, hey, like, you might be doping a little bit. I was like, yeah, just shut up. Like, I just want to have a birthday party every day of my life. It needs to be a birthday party. I don't want to hear about anything else. I'm like, and we reported all this stuff about Damian Lillard this summer, and Portland fans were basically just like they don't care how good our process was or how good the information was or how it's standing the test of time. They just didn't want to hear it because it made their day unpleasant because they love the idea that Damian loves Portland. End of story, end of analysis, right? Like, it's, when I say that the NBA environment is not very safe for truth, part of it just comes from the fact that, like, people don't want to hear the truth. Like, it's just, that's part of it too.
I mean, how is that different than what we see on a national, if not a global scale now, off the court?
For sure.
It's, I was saying to you this morning, I don't know, because I just don't know when it flipped politically. There was for most of history, politicians, especially the most powerful politicians, could pretty much do what they wanted to do. And the beat writers knew. all the beat writers knew what was going on, and they just kept it quiet, and they didn't go talk to Secret Service or whatever. And that's obviously, I don't know when it flipped, but it flipped.
The perfect measure of this to me is Harvey Weinstein. Like, do you know how many people cover Hollywood? Like a freaking ton of people cover Hollywood. They have whole careers just talking about this deal and who's going to get in that movie. And all that. Harvey Weinstein was systematically just saying, like, essentially, if you won't do what I want, I'm just going to move you to the side and your career's on pause, right? To a bunch of women. And like, what? And now everyone's like, oh yeah, she used to be famous. She's not famous anymore. Oh, well, like that, like it was a weird bunch of like, you just couldn't, it seems very obvious to me from afar that the calculation was you just can't afford to piss off Harvey Weinstein. And this industry that, that I'm living my life in has had an influx of the same agents from Hollywood, right? Like that's happened since I started in this career, but now it's a little bit more like triangulating the power brokering, the access with like, it's a little more organized than it was. It wasn't quite so simple as let's just do what we have to do to get access. Now it's like, well, we can help you with that access. Anyway, yeah, we could talk about this all day. Do you want to though? Like I got stories for days, but it's not most people's cup of tea. I think it's more just like look for these opportunities, look for people doing really honest work in journalism, in sports and elsewhere, and like realize that's hard, right? Realize that's like the day that you do your best, truest journalism, that when you publish on that, mostly people are just going to give you hell, right? Like I'm sure Baxter's phone is ridiculous these last few days. People saying like, why would you rock the boat that way, right? Why would you upset everything this way? I'm sure he's getting the opposite too. But anyway, there you go.
I'll finish it with this. This is not about the story itself. You and I in LA, I think it was 2017, and we had dinner with Kevin Arnovitz, who has written some great articles about this kind of stuff, and Baxter. And went to a fancy, I think it was just the four of us. I may be wrong, maybe in their fifth. And I was easily the dumbest guy in the room and the worst writer, at least at the table. And obviously I knew Kevin and you very, very well. I didn't know Baxter so well. It was just a normal, pleasant, great, dinner. Like this guy's not an animal. Like he may be on the court. He may be, I don't know if he plays and plays hard, but he's just a regular person who loves to write. I mean, I've had many meals with Baxter as part of a team. In fact, I sat with him and his fiance, who's now married to, and they were just the loveliest people, but this is what he does. And he's a good writer too. And he's been mentored by people like you. He's been taught well, and he listens well and learns well. And I think we need people like that. We need to hold the mirror. I mean, I always say that my job as a dad and as a coach is I'm going to be a mirror for sure. I mean, you're going to always get the truth from me. I told my daughter, except for the day she gets married, for some reason I don't like her hair or dress, I will not say that. But in every other day, I'm going to tell the truth. Same as my players. They're always get the truth from me. Not to say I'm going to do it cruelly if they go 1 of 13 like Westbrook did the other day, Russell did against Portland. I'm not going to be cruel about it. But if only they get the puppy dogs and ice cream, that's a disservice to their career because they won't do as well. And I feel it's the same thing here. It's a disservice to this league and this business in this industry if when everyone is kind of looks the other way at the kind of shit that certainly as Sarver was doing. I don't know much about the Olshey thing yet. I think it's a disservice and it's unfortunate.
We published that story in July. Like there's a line, with every Sarver story, Sarver will tell you he was joking, right? Like this is, and everybody in the room seemed to enjoy it. But like, nevertheless, we get to this like giant cavalcade of upset feelings and toxic work environment and a woman who feels suicidal, right? Like, but on video, right? Like you don't have to take anybody's word for it. We published in July on video, him talking about another one of his investors' sons sleeping their way through the cheerleading team. He used a nastier phrase for that, but so Robert, that's a hilarious joke. Did it happen? I don't know. But did anyone, did all of our friends who are, national writers, anyone who's in charge gets a salary for telling the truth in the NBA? like explore that, prod that, follow up on that. Like, I mean, maybe that's what this story is from Baxter, but like, it seems like it was crickets. I was kind of blown away. Like, that's a pretty incredible thing to say about a workplace, right? And you can see that there's not a lot of appetite for pissing off people like Robert Sarver, right? You can kind of see that in how that was received.
Yeah, but and if they did, they would also have to have at least one boss who wanted them to follow up with it.
Yeah. I'll tell you another thing is, like, maybe you think to yourself, oh, I love the Suns. I want the Suns to go far. So I don't want to hear that. But like, that's a short-term way of thinking. The Suns are much better off if they don't have a ticking time bomb, right?
Right.
Like probably they'll weather all of this. And I don't know what the league's going to do with Sarver, but this now is the only thing that could completely ruin the Suns' chances, right? It could be that everybody's done, right? It could be that, DeAndre Ayton won't resign and Chris Paul wants to trade. And like, it could be that Monty Williams is out, like all those things. The whole fun party could be over because of this now, right? It depends on how it's handled. But you don't want this kind of cancer in your organization,
Nope.
right? You just don't. And you want to, if there is this kind of thing in your organization, you want to know about it early. So you can, maybe there was a way, whatever year he bought in, 2006, Sarver could have cured this kind of behavior, but now we're 20 years in, like that's a mess, right?
Yeah. And to your point, and this is one reason why it's so hard to stay on top. Shit like this happens if you let it happen. The Spurs were really a hell of a run. Hell of a run when you consider how long they were very, very good and won titles. And not to say they were devoid of controversy, but they didn't have much. And it wasn't as deep-seated as this. This is pretty significant stuff, I think.
Yeah. Devin says you can't help feel bad for Chris Paul. He has been a part of 2 organizations where an owner said racist things. Yeah.
Racist things that we know about.
Yeah.
Because we can't speak to the other owners. Again, that's one reason why you buy the team in the first place.
And that's where I would say too, Devin, like when you hear players say it's a business, right? Like when you hear them say it's a business, this is what they mean, right? They know they're going to play for someone who's going to make things uncomfortable in this kind of way, right? Like it's not like, a shocker, right? I think by and large, there was I really feel like this Chris Paul quote in the middle of the Black Lives Matter. He basically said that he was hearing from players all the time who weren't sure they wanted to pull on the uniform, right? They wanted to know more about their billionaire. And like, nobody will talk about that in public, but everybody's obsessing about that, right? Like this is the central concern of the NBA is like, is the person I'm going to work for? This is a concern for coaches, for GMs, for everyone, right? It's like, are they going to ruin everything, right? Are they going to ruin my day every day? All you have to do is listen to Amin. Amin's been saying this in public for 10 years about Robert Sarver, right?
More than that.
Yeah. Like this is all you have to do is want to hear it and you can hear it. There's signs all over the place. And I think this little urge of like, but I want, whatever, like Robert Parra has, is less likely to be criticized because people love Ja Morant. Like, what a favor from Ja to Robert. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you guys love Ja. That's great. But don't let Robert off the hook just because you love Ja. That's crazy pants to me. That's like, like let Robert get his, whatever has coming. Like he can afford it. Like he can take the criticism. Like, let's not put him in glass just because you love Ja Morant. Like that seems a little weird.
Well, it's not just about owners. John Gruden was finally canned, but he didn't just, I don't think. He had a personality flip in the last month. This guy is spewing. It's real simple. I'm a simple guy. If you sound like Donald Trump, it's going to be hard for you to convince people you're not on that list of suspected racist bigots, whatever you want to call it. John Gruden sounded just like Donald Trump, and yet he's been working all this time.
Well, those emails that got him in trouble were from when he was the highest paid ESPN employee. And
there you go.
And a very
right. Yeah.
well-received ESPN employee at that time.
Yeah.
When Jamel Hill was not welcome.
Yeah.
Jamel's got to go.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's
well, and not that anyone listening to this show probably isn't more like the way we see the world, because they probably don't want to listen, but that's really the point. Jarod and I talked about this on Friday. These NBA jobs are dream jobs. and to resign because of the environment that someone else is causing you stress in is an unfair ask to the as it's as far from fair as you can get. And I realize life isn't always fair, but why should these people be forced to resign from their dream job because of how you are making it so uncomfortable, when that person is the one that should be held accountable for creating that environment to begin with? It's not a fair answer to say, well, if you don't like it, just leave, which is what a lot of people on that side of the world will say. Well, you can always just leave. Well, yeah, it's true. But again, that's not solving the problem. And it's an unfair ask.
And it's about power, right? Like I actually have over there, there's a book. I always point to books. There's a book, just trust me, there's a book over there. But basically, like every kind of sexual assault is about power. They're not all, what was that famous line? I think it's like everything is about sex except sex, which is about power. I think it's Oscar Wilde, maybe. Amazing quote.
Look it up.
But you know, this, like Amin tells a story about playing pickup. They're playing pickup on game day in the Suns arena, and it's like the video coordinator and, you know, assistant coaches, and Sarver sees it and he wants to jump in, and it means the dumbass who doesn't immediately get himself assigned someone else to guard, so he has to guard Sarver. So now this is a big problem, because either you shut him down and then he's unhappy, or you don't guard him well and then he's unhappy. You have to like middle guard him, right? And they would use this defensive technique. I mean, just told the story in the Levitard show, which is why it's fresh in my head. But they would call it Haslam. You know what that means? So if a non-shooter has the ball and there's a good post player, then you would sag way off, right? And you'd yell Haslam, so your defensive teammates knew that's what you were doing, right?
Okay.
And so it means trying to basically look pretty busy guarding Robert Sarver, but not too busy. But then at one point he yells Haslam when Sarver has the ball in the corner, and Sarver shoots and misses. And then as they're running back down the court, Sarver says, "Yeah, but Haslam has a job."
Wow.
And you know, I mean, didn't get fired that day, and he did actually later get fired by the Suns, as I understand it. But that's about power, right? It might be tolerable, it might not be, but the point of it is Robert reminding Amin who's in fucking charge, right? And he's very clear about it. There are a lot of jokes like that from Robert Sarver, right? And I think this is why, you know, the theme of these things we're talking about today is just power. And that's why I think it so often delves into this sexual inappropriateness, is because that's like a very, you know, potent place for power to be exhibited, if that makes sense.
You're gonna laugh at this, but this is a reference I think will make a ton of sense. In 1983, the first movie I saw as a college student was a midnight showing of Mr. Mom with Michael Keaton and Terry Garr. And Martin Mull, who was a very funny guy back then, plays his boss. And they do like an Olympics thing, like a outdoor event. And Michael Keaton's about to win this like obstacle course race. And as he's winning, he's looking at his wife, who was working for Martin Mull. Michael Keaton was a stay-at-home dad. He was Mr. Mom. That's what they called that. He had lost his job as an auto engineer. He looks at his wife and all the other people who are looking on in horror as he's about to cross the finish line first. So he just trips himself.
Oh, okay.
So Martin Mull can win and celebrate. It's actually a very funny thing that my brother Mike and I quote him all the time. This is a very funny scene, but you don't beat the boss. So my point, the reason why I bring this up is when your team, and this is why we're talking about this right now on a show that is a basketball show, when your team looks like they've got talent and you've got some coaches that have been successful and you just keep fucking losing every fucking year, you might want to start thinking about talking to your local beat reporters about what the fuck is going on behind the scenes, because people keep tripping to make sure the power guy keeps looking good at the expense of your team. But that shit's happening all the time. It's not just unique to the NBA either.
Yeah. And I don't want to make it out that it would be easy. Like, these aren't easy career choices, to tell the truth. Like Frank Isola, like, went after Jim Dolan and in that era, and they had like private investigators digging into him. He was followed from the second he got to the building. So for a journalist to be followed is that means nobody who works for the team can have a private conversation with you, right? Like, which means you don't have any of the crown jewels of what the profession runs on, right? Which is like insight everyone else doesn't have. We had a, I don't know, think he'd mind me saying his name, but maybe I'll just be careful. But like, when I was an editor, a first-time writer, I see you, Greg. But go cover a team. Okay, he went to cover the Pelicans, and being a journalist and journalistic-minded guy, he started writing about how the Pelicans had a worrisome healthcare program, right? And it was in tandem with the Saints and blah, blah. And he wrote some stories about this. By the way, this exact thing cost the Pelicans Anthony Davis, kind of a good player, right? But he was still there. And you wouldn't believe it. People are so used to the beat writers going along. This was like a 5-alarm fire of outrage that like a beat writer was doing journalism. Like I, as this guy's boss, got call after call of just like, you gotta walk this guy. You gotta teach him a lesson. You got blah blah blah. Like, and it's just completely taken as normal that everyone will just go along with the program. And chief among those who hate it when a beat writer does some journalism are the other beat writers, right? Like they're the most victimized by this. They hate it. That you're shunned. Like, and now you're traveling in this little band that goes around the North America, and that these terrible schedules and terrible hours and not this great pay, and everybody treats you like crap. Like it's a problematic environment for the truth. It really, really is. So when people are able to tell the truth, like hats off to you. Sort of like Luka hitting that 3, like, whoo, that was against long odds, man. Right. Nice freaking going, dude.
All right. I think I could talk forever this, but let's talk some truth about some happenings that happened this weekend.
This has David Thorpe all over it. Superstar Kevin Durant with his superstar big brain breaks down the coming superstar Scotty Barnes. Like, here we go. Let's listen to this.
It's rare. I mean, you got a lot of guys who love to compete and love to win. And but what's more rare about Scotty Barnes is his IQ for the game, his length, his enthusiasm for the game. All of that stuff shines bright when you watch him play, and you could tell he just want to be there for his teammates. He makes winning basketball plays. But I think a lot of young guys in the league had that competitive fire, but he has something a little extra as far as just seeing the game a little slower, and that's rare for a guy. How old is he? 19, 20? I mean, sheesh. He knows how to play the right way, and he's only going to get better.
Yeah, so the reason I wanted to play that is not because of that it's Scotty Barnes. I would have loved him if he had said it about anyone. It's that Jarod and I talked this, I think, on Friday, and we've referenced it before. This guy's 7 feet tall. He dribbles he dribbles way better than most guards from the 70s and 80s even. He's one of the best shooters of all time, is an absolute assassin as a scorer. He's been a great defender. He's got a chance to be top 10 all time. And I think most people don't understand the brain power involved. They see all the physical skills and the actual game skills. But as I've argued many times before, I think many of them would be master chess players if they were so inclined to study chess. The processing speed. In Durant's case, it's more of a holistic understanding of what makes the game meaningful and how you win. So when he talks about things like enthusiasm, when Scotty Barnes does not cheer like he did when he was in college, I'm telling you, Kevin Durant has watched this guy play before. Kevin Durant is someone who is so in love with the game. We've talked about how he just loves the ball, but I think he also loves watching players ball. And that's all these guys are that way. They can't get enough. They just want to study. The best surgeons I know are always studying surgery. What's the latest innovation we can provide? Who is doing something different that maybe can save more lives? This is what these guys do. And so the fact that he sees the little things that I see, I'm a professional at this. I'm supposed to do this. Kevin Durant's supposed to worry about his own game. I'm worried about lots of people's games, but he and I see the same thing. I feel very good that he sees it, but I also have to recognize that KD, this is what makes you so special beyond all the other incredible things that you do, that you get it for a guy like Scotty Barnes. And so it just really hit me that Durant is just that really something special. He really is.
Jarod, can you join us and just talk about what happened in the chat?
That was, by the way, they played yesterday, and Barnes had 5 steals in the game. one directly on Durant, one he kind of forced. It was a double team. Durant and Harden were the best players on the court when it mattered, and that means something. But Scotty Barnes just turned 20 years old. It's like he's going to be there. He's going to be really good.
No, Henry, I cannot tell you what went on in the chat. This is private between only the Black people. We do not share this with the public. Sometimes we got to have things on our own. This is for the secret Black people meetings that we have by ourselves.
It's genius.
No, we're having a good time. Like, say it loud. I'm Black and I'm proud of. I mean, it's if you are a live human being, like come on, you know what that is. Like you've heard it before. Although I guess if you're from certain parts of the country, you may not have heard it, and if you hear it, you probably don't like it. But that's a whole other conversation for a different.
You were getting to talk about Scotty Barnes, right?
No, I was getting to talk about Kevin Durant, but whatever.
There you go. Okay.
Did you watch the game, Jarod?
Yeah, I watched that game closely. I rewatched it. I did some post game. Scotty Barnes is great. Like this is the first game I watched him up close, like for 48 and then watched again. It's all things you say, coach, right? So you see some of the stuff where it's the puppy with his head gut, right? It's like, oh, okay, I get it. But there are those moments where you're like, oh, I see. Like this guy, I mean, even if he never learns to shoot, and I'm sure he will, and he shot it decently yesterday.
Yeah, his field goal percentage is good.
He's gonna play 20 years in the NBA just doing that shit. Like, I mean, right? Just doing what he did yesterday. That is enough to have a 20-year career in this league. But I think he'll get way better than that.
Well, what I told Henry, Jarod, I told this Henry this morning that it was probably James Harden's best game of the season. He looks in better shape to me, or healthier, or both. But it's not like he shot it great.
Yeah.
And it's not like he went to the free throw line 17 times. I think he went 6 times, which is a lot for him this year. But he's a basketball player.
Yeah.
And so he made basketball plays to including scoring some buckets. And that's what KD sees in Barnes too. He makes basketball plays. And it sounds silly to any average fan, but I'm promising you, there's a lot of players who play in the NBA that aren't making a lot of great basketball plays. They're making a lot of me plays or athletic plays, but there's the little subtle cuts and passes and screens. I don't know if it was KD, but someone was talking yesterday about the screens Barnes sets. I think it was Durant.
Patty Mills might have. So
Patty Mills it was, yeah.
What I thought was interesting post-game, coach. Every Nets player, because there was a reporter who's obviously doing a Scotty Barnes story that asked the same Scotty Barnes question 17 times in a row. Every player that came up. And which is, I mean, we all do it. I do this.
Yeah,
I do
fine, right.
That's the story you're working on.
That's the sausage making.
They all did this thing that I thought was interesting. So like Scotty Barnes, they look down at the stat sheet and they go, the stuff he does doesn't show up on the stat, right? Because they knew, they were like, damn, he was everywhere doing all these things. So that's the thing that was going on in their head. Let me see what he did in the game. Oh, fine on those, but it's not showing up here because we know how much of an impact he had on the floor. And these are all vets, right? Because the Nets are an old team. So nobody's young that they're asking these questions to. They all know, they're like, oh no, this guy's, he's ready. He's going to be really good in this league. And that's the kind of stamp of approval you get from guys like Patty Mills, Blake Griffin, Kevin Durant, et cetera, James Harden, who are like, we get it. This kid's going to be good.
Henry, there was a play yesterday. I just want to say this because you're going to love this so much. I guarantee you Jarod remembers, where Blake Griffin was left wide open above the right break. This was the game was very competitive to the very, very end. The Nets played great fourth quarter. And Siakam's first came back, although I thought he was great on defense. He's a little rusty. So Blake is open. Open. Oh, I mean, like open, Henry. As it like Russell Westbrook kind of open, where they just didn't decide to guard him because they were chasing other shooters. And Blake makes the shot. And we have to remember there was a long period of time where he was one of the best players on the planet. And now he's like the role player, dive on the floor guy, which he always was that too, by the way.
Blue collar boys. I'll tell you about that in a minute.
Blue collar boys, right. They talk about it. So he makes his three. And Henry, he looks at he doesn't look at any one person, but he kind of looks like, motherfuckers on Blake Griffin. Like, how are you not guarding me? It was amazing. But I think the Raptors say, well, you got Harden over there and Durant over there and Harris over there and Patty. Like, who are we supposed to guard? We picked you to let shoot it. But yeah, it was cool. Like he's their role player now. This guy, yeah, he's better than when the Lakers have at that age.
He has redefined himself in his career as a superstar role player, and something that Nash has said multiple times. The same way he attacked his career as an all-star when he was the Clippers is how he's attacking being a role player. So he is diving on the ground, doing all the things that like TJ McConnell's and players of that ilk. Right. The difference about him doing it is Durant and all them remember when he was like them, right? And they're like, fuck, if he's doing that, like, this is great. Like, it's galvanizing them to do those things. And so he and Joe Harris have a thing. They call themselves the blue collar boys, where they put on their steel toe boots and their hard hats before the game. And they have a little, so it was first them two. Patty Mills just got indoctrinated into the club. And they asked Durant, they asked Blake, is Durant? And he's like, we recognize KD's contributions. He did take that charge today, but he's gonna have to do a lot more, jump through some more hoops before he gets into the blue collar boys group, which I thought was
the whole time you're talking, I'm like, is LaMarcus in that club?
He had a big game the other day, though.
He did.
He's like kind of on the fringy,
Listen, they're ranked 5th defensively on dunks and threes, and they played the 18th toughest or weakest schedule in terms of offensive minded versus their defense. Still, so 5th against 18 is good.
No,
right?
they're
not 12th. They're 8th.
That Toronto game yesterday was, to me, their best game all season, start to finish. That third quarter, I mean, they played good defense pretty much the whole game, but that third quarter, I was like, wow. When these, again, it's like the same thing I said last year and all season. When they decide and they give a shit, they're fine, right? And they're actually doing something different. Like they would switch everything was the defense last year. They're not switching everything now. They're doing some drop, they're doing some switch, and they're buying in and committing, and their identity is changing, guys. Like without, I mean, look, they still have Kevin Durant and James Harden, so they're still an excellent offensive team. But without Kyrie, they're not a supernova offensive team. So they're buying into a different kind of identity right now, and this might be good for them.
Yeah.
David said to me on the phone this morning that basically with the way that the game is more physical now, their advantage is more than it ever was before. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I'm just speculating this, Jarod, but in that Toronto Brooklyn game last night yesterday afternoon was a fantastic game. Until the Nets really kind of pulled away, I thought it was a very well played, entertaining, great game. And the Raptors don't have anyone like Harden and Durant, and the Nets have 2 guys. And so if the game is going to be a little bit more muddy, physical, dirty, and I mean it in a good way, now we think they're going to suddenly start calling everything in the postseason. No. I think it'll be just even a little more sluggish and more of a slugfest. So the teams that have those elite offensive players, as opposed to the more well-structured systems, the Suns have one dude, Booker, right? The Warriors may just have one dude. We'll see what Clay looks like in Curry. Having that second guy is hugely advantageous. If we continue to see what we're seeing now, we're not even the second week in November fully, so they're done with it. So, yeah, I think
unpack that a little bit, David. Like, what's the dynamic of that? Why are superstars more valuable in the muddy game?
Well, okay, very good question. Because you can do more physically. This goes to what we just saw with Luka. You can. I was watching. I forget which game it was. I'll think of it in a minute. The team was bumping cutters more because it wasn't the Nets. It was another team. Just being more physical, having a presence, it makes your offense break down more. Just imagine keep throwing wrenches into a machine. Mm-hmm. Things are going to break down. Well, when you've got Harden and Durant, who are their own offensive generators, Harden is not the player he used to be yet and may never be. He does not want to drive, Jarod. If there's traffic, he'll drive straight line with no traffic. But if there's people in the way, he'll back right back out to get to his shot. But you don't know that defensively, and you start leaking in that second guy. I mean, James come on. He's seen these things in his sleep for a decade. He's making the quick pass, who may or may not shoot it, or they may make the extra pass and get a wide open shot. If you don't have one of those 2 guys that can get their own bucket or create for someone else, it's that much harder against the more physical style of defense that we can see. So Giannis, for example, I mean, Drew Holiday has to find another level. Middleton has it for sure. Giannis just has to be beating people up inside. But if you're allowed to be more physical against Giannis, his advantage is a little bit mitigated. Whereas you could be as physical as you want against Durant, it doesn't matter. He's just shooting over you anyway. So I think, and adding Kyrie that's why they were the favorites to begin the year. It really makes things very difficult. I don't know if he ever is going to play for them. But yeah, the Nets are figuring it out. It's great to see.
You see it, Henry, in this, and Coach, in the sense that it's that way that in the playoffs when the players care the most about the ability to shot create, right? That's the skill they value the most, because in the playoffs, the way they're calling the game now in the regular season is how they call it in the playoffs, right? So all your split actions and your fancy stuff, yeah, we're bumping you off that. We're grabbing, we're holding.
Harder.
Yeah,
It's
we're not
harder.
letting you get to it easy. So now, instead of with 12 seconds left, I got 5. Well, screw it. I got to go score now because we don't have a whole lot of time. So Durant and Harden are fail safes, right? And the thing I'll say on Harden, you're right about him not driving, Coach. And I'm wondering this. So when the referees all offseason were preparing for changing the foul calls, right, to how they're going to officiate the game, you know that they overloaded on tape of James Harden, Trae Young, and whatever, right? They might have self-corrected themselves away from, I don't care what he does coming into the lane, we're not calling a foul. Because there are times, and I've rewatched him, he is blatantly getting fouled and they're just not calling it. And I'm wondering if they're ever going to recorrect. They may not. It may just be, this is what it is. They're not calling fouls on you.
They'll study it up on tape. Like, I think they'll study it up on tape and come around with, being more. I think the NBA referees do a good job of this. They'll get better at it. But on the other hand, it allows the Nets to be more physical defensively and get away with stuff in a good way, not in a bad way. They can take it up a notch. It's hard to play physical defense and not foul when they're calling everything. If they're not calling as much, you have less excuse not to bring it. And I think Nash, I don't know what you think, Jarod, you know better than me, but from what I can see, I like his tone. He's coaching. Like, I don't think he's just rolling the ball out. I think he's coaching.
The common misconception with that team is they're not well coached. And you couldn't watch that game yesterday or watch and not think that. They have clear system about what they're doing. And Durant and Harden, those guys want to be coached, right? And
For
that's
sure.
the kind of guy that they trust because he comes with bona fides, right? So they're like, no, we're in and we're bought in on this. And to your point about the defense and the physicality, that's why the Heat and the Knicks are doing even better, because they were going to play physical defense regardless of whether the rules changed or not. Oh, now they're changed? Oh, forget it. Like, we're going to house you now. And that's going to be trouble for teams. Like, you see Miami on your schedule the next year, like, oh, fuck. Like, I want no part of that tonight.
All right, important question. Are the Cavs good?
That two-man Twin Towers thing that Coach and I, we talked about, we said, I think it could be good. It's really good, Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley. I like it.
Yeah, didn't they just beat the hell out of the Knicks the other day?
Yeah, yesterday they beat the Knicks.
Yeah. They've got some stuff figured out. I told Henry, they've got 4 of their 6 slots filled. If you end up moving Sexton to the second group, which I think they should do at some point, Garland is going to be a player. Allen and Mobley, book it. Mark it in. They got to find some help with the 3 and then the starting 2 if Sexton becomes your Jordan Clarkson, which I think he can be. He's young. But they never had any slot filled before. They have at least 4 of 6 filled. And now you got to get the rest, which they might have. And I've never been a fan of their coach, but he's done a good job. He might be his coach of the year right now.
Caleb, whatever you did to prepare for today's show, please do that every day. This is how we want you. This is like, he's perfectly caffeinated. He's firing on all cylinders. Everything's gold from Caleb today. All right. David's noticing a Cole Anthony post-game interview that we want to check out. Judy, if you don't mind playing that,
Have
please.
you seen this, Rod?
I did not.
This is the best. This is Anthony Edwards' clone.
I love Anthony Edwards, so.
Just wait to hear what Cole Anthony does.
David, I've been looking forward to one of these in person for
Facts.
quite some time, right?
Facts.
Come on, Cole. Down by 10 in the fourth quarter.
Facts.
What did you guys do
Facts.
to come back and win this game?
We fought, man. Shout out to the team, man. Shout out to RJ. Shout out to Dell. Shout out to Mo Bamba. Shout out to my whole team, man. You know we had to go get that dub, man. Shout out to the Magic, man. Let's go.
How about you, Cole? You took over in that fourth quarter. You're very David, I've been looking forward to one.
He's staring at the camera every second, too, like he's a Hollywood actor.
Oh, man, these guys are having fun.
He's playing good, playing really well.
Yeah, look, I mean, Cole's obviously a player, right? We think Jalen's going to be a player. Like, look, maybe they have 2 of their spots filled.
Yeah,
6.
Suggs is not there yet, but I think he's going to be fine. He's going to be a good player. But Cole is their starting point guard now, not Suggs. He plays off it a little bit, which I think is good for him too. But yeah, I just love. I think the sophomore class is, everyone's talking about these rookies.
Sophomore class.
Denny Avdia leads all second-year players in net margin. He's finishing games for the Wizards, coming off a serious injury. We can show the video of Curry helping James Wiseman. Curry throws a little drive and a sweet little pass to that's the Denny one. He throws a nice little pass to Kevon Looney, who gets fouled. But then he goes to the bench and he talks to Wiseman, basically saying, hey, I'm lobbing that to you. And he's not just saying that. He's really coaching him through it. And Wiseman's not, of course, not even playing now. But I just think that there's a they're not. I don't think the sophomores are motivated guys because of what the rookies are doing. That's in terms of in total, but individually, I guarantee you they are.
Oh yeah,
these are competitive dudes, and they're like, "What are we telling these guys all the time for? We can play."
And they all played AAU together because they're around the same age range, right? So they probably
yeah, it's a great point. Yeah. So they've been playing each other for years. These high level guys and EBLs, EYBLs, whatever, and AAU.
Are you both sold on Warriors as contenders?
They play the weakest schedule in the league right now. Literally 30th out of 30.
That is true.
Yeah, so they're 8-1 against the worst schedule in the league. I am not. I think yes, I think they're contenders, Jarod. I would not make them favorites even to come out of the West as of now. I realize you're supposed to project, but I would not project them to be the best team in the West as of now.
But somebody has to win the West, right? Like
Utah is really good. Utah's way better than
Utah's really good, but what 40%, 50% to win the West, and the other 50% goes to the grab bag that includes the Warriors, right? There's all the teams you could name them, they're all in that stew.
And if Clay's healthy and Wiseman's real, I mean, the Golden State's number one in defense.
That's the thing. If Clay comes back, because the area that I'm concerned about, Coach, for his comeback is the defensive side of the ball. I'm not worried about him shooting and all that. Like, that's going to be fine. Yeah. It's defense. Because remember, when they were at their peak, he was one of their, if not their best wing defender, right? So is he coming back right to that level? If he is, then
he also since then has been a regular season horse crap defender. Like he was one of the worst defenders in the NBA,
this season.
And then he did turn it up in the playoffs, but yeah, it's age might not favor his defense, right? Like age and injury, right? It might be that they have to worry about that. I think you're exactly right.
But it's a variable that we've got to mark. Got to give shout out to Ty Lue. I didn't even put this in the document, Henry, but the Clippers were kind of left for dead when Kawhi was hurt, and then they started the season bad, and they're balling now. Terrence Mann's balling. Paul George. The other day I looked it up. I think I said it to you. Paul George leading the league in steals and scoring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're
old guys. Kevin Durant leading the league in scoring. Like old guys are doing their thing. Like
yeah. I like that.
Right before we recorded this report from Shams that the 76ers are basically like sniffing around Ben Simmons' mental health care, wondering if it's like a legit reason to keep him out. It sounds like, this is delicate territory here. Right?
The question I have is because if you're going to get Simmons, Philly's going to demand either Tatum or Brown in return, right? You're not getting Simmons without giving up one of those guys. Would Boston consider it because either a Tatum Brown alpha dog thing is brewing behind the scenes or they see it coming?
I think about that these Marcus Smart comments where he's basically like, these dudes got to figure it out or whatever. We got to play like a team. And it just seems like that's some kind of portrait of a team where the mix is bad, right? Underachieving, I guess. And I do think, Tatum Simmons pretty good combo.
I mean, you got the ace defender on this, and you got Tatum could do all the scoring. But what if you did a Brown Simmons combo
and trade Tatum?
Yeah, because Brown can score. I mean, all his numbers are better than Tatum's right now.
He's outplaying him. I think it's more likely of that. And meanwhile, if Luka doesn't make the circus shot, Boston's got a real shot in overtime to beat Dallas and be on a nice little win streak. They're playing better since the team meeting they had. We got to keep paying attention. There's a lot going on here.
If it were me,
Mike Porter Jr., by the way, I don't know what's going on with him. Something's up.
Yeah, he's been bad. Yeah.
I don't know what's happening.
Actually, all three of these then for the Brown, Tatum, Michael Porter Jr. thing, I think comes down to just like whose long-term health do you trust the most, right? That's ultimately the best value, right? Is like forget. I personally, when you said that, John, about trading, I'm like, this is a non-scientific, non-evidence-based take from Henry Abbott, but like, you don't want to piss off Jason Tatum and face him all the time. I just feel like he's gonna come into your house and just burn the whole place down.
Judy has set it. Judy has set the time.
Eastern Standard Time, people. All right. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Jarod. Thank you, David. We'll see you guys on
Tomorrow
Friday.
noon.
Tomorrow noon. Join David. He's going to change your life.
Fireside.